We need our pot stoner degenerate from Greeley
I know.
jump in because
Hope he's okay. Someone check on him.
yeah, Jason, what's up, dude? Like we got headband day going on, preseason watch list continuing. Like, let's go, let's go, let's go. All right. AFC East 3-2-1. This is one of the most interesting divisions in all of football for multiple reasons. The main one is there's no more Tom Brady. And who replaced him is interesting, and the other teams are interesting, and Jamal Adams is very interesting. We're going to get to all of that and then some as it's the AFC East kicking off here on the preseason watch list. It's the Audible, the footballguys.com podcast. Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom, going 32 teams, 32 episodes, and every skill position player that you want to know about, we talk about right here on this show. Bloom, today is Headband Day. In honor of Josh Allen? I don't know. Let's talk about the Buffalo Bills because they are the team that is seen as the next in line to win the division, to take over, to be the AFC East winners, to make a playoff run, maybe a deep playoff run. We'll talk about the new weapon, one in particular, and Stephon Diggs a little bit later. But let's go back to Allen because he's one of the worst quarterbacks when it comes to accuracy, short and intermediate. He's one of the worst quarterbacks when it comes to accuracy on deep passes. I don't know how that's just replaced or improved necessarily drastically by Stephon Diggs. It's on him. It's on him to be better now from a fantasy lens. Josh Allen's going to score you points, girl, because he's going to run the ball. And that's what he does. He's got that big arm. Okay, it's time to see progression for Allen as a passer. I mean, people will fall all over themselves to point out flaws in Lamar Jackson's game as a passer. Nobody really brings it up as much with Josh Allen. We're all just kind of expecting him to get better. I really like Josh Allen a lot. I like the kid a lot. But the game leaves something to be desired.
Yes. And this is, again, from that NFL reality show point of view, this is the most interesting division. You've got the Buffalo, New England chapter over here. You've got the Jets chapter over here, Miami turning the cruise ship around. But this is the story of the division in the sense that it's Buffalo's time. If not now, when? Tom Brady's gone, and this is the plan. Sean McDermott has been the little engine that could, or the tortoise, like just building the culture. And hey, from a leadership standpoint, from a guy the team and the community rallies around standpoint, Josh Allen, A+. But as you said, the accuracy, the deep accuracy, especially last year, a problem, and it's leaving points on the table. And there's some Jameis Winston to him in a way where he makes the mistakes that makes it hard and then can make the plays to get over the hump sometimes. But at some point, you wonder if he's holding back this offense. You bring in Stephon Diggs. In some ways, this is that confidence therapy. Well, we're going to give you another great deep target. Puts defenses in binds. If you want to take Josh Allen as your fantasy quarterback this year, the argument to do it is another one of those defenses where we say, well, who do you cover? Who do you try to take away? What do you try to take away? The running game, or John Brown, or Stephon Diggs. Of course, Cole Beasley was coming along. Dawson Knox is an exciting tight end, and he was one of Allen's main targets last year, considering it was his rookie year as a downfield tight end. But I think, like you said, how do you fix it? How does this just fix itself? I just think Josh Allen, and maybe it's emotionally, just needs to slow down a little bit when he's on the field. Just a little bit tight, a little bit keyed up. And I think there's still some of that left over from Wyoming Cowboys, baby, where he put it all on his shoulders. It was all on him. It's not all on him. They built a great team around him. He just needs to be calm and execute.
The best athletes at the highest level perform with a calm mind. So there we go. Speaking of calm minds, Anthony, our man, says it's racquetball session.
Yeah, I love racquetball. My favorite sport. Dude. Racquetball is my favorite sport. I love to hit the blue ball, chase it around the court. Yeah.
Chase around the court. Okay. Well, all right. It's been a while since I played a little racquetball.
It's wonderful.
As you could tell, because I'm a little round now. But let's continue to talk about this Buffalo Bills situation. Behind Josh Allen, I mean, from a dynasty perspective, sure, I'm interested in Jake Fromm, like super deep dynasty, but not terribly interested, Bloom.
Right.
Because, accuracy, sure, but doesn't have the tools, looks like a career backup quarterback.
Yeah. If there's anything interesting here about them taking Jake Fromm, it's that he's the opposite of Josh Allen. Not toolsy at all, but can play within structure. And I just thought, well, that's interesting because the way that Josh Allen plays, Colin Kaepernick would be a good backup to them. For what I mean, like a quarterback that can do those kinds of things. When they had Tyree Jackson, right, the quarterback from University of Buffalo, that was somebody. Matt Barkley doesn't necessarily map to that, but we can mention this about Matt Barkley. Two people took Matt Barkley instead of Saquon Barkley in the Scott Fishbowl season. I don't know if you saw this. They took Matt Barkley number 2 overall, and Matt Barkley himself actually recognized it, tweeted it out, said, I've made mistakes like that. So Matt Barkley, fantasy football community appreciates you.
We appreciate you as well. It's Siggy Stardust and the Dalai Lammey. That's from Rich. So appreciate you guys and appreciate what Devin Singletary can be and is for this team. Now we'll get into Zach Moss, who is hard charging style, could be there for Singletary, but Singletary, we're looking for someone to take over that Frank Gore role. I'm also looking for Singletary to continue to take that next step. Not to be tremendously more productive than he was as a rookie Bloom, but Singletary is a really good back, somewhat underrated in my opinion. So what does he do for an encore this year? And then is it as simple as saying Moss is the Gore replacement?
It is that simple. Let's handle Moss first. And Moss can be fantasy relevant just by being the Gore replacement and being more involved in the passing game than Gore was. Moss is a good pass blocker, good receiver, even though he's a big power back. And Gore was terrible at the goal line and had significant goal line opportunity, even though Josh Allen was also getting a lot of goal line opportunities. And maybe Moss, if he's efficient at the goal line, that hurts Josh Allen's fantasy outlook a bit. So if you like Moss, maybe you take a little bit off the edge there for Allen. But Moss doesn't have the burst. Moss is a little bit of a plotter, and I don't think he's going to displace Devin Singletary. And when Moss was taken, look, they didn't take J.K. Dobbins. They didn't take DeAndre Swift. They didn't take one of those top backs, but they still took a back that fits well in the areas that you'd want to complement Singletary. This is kind of a thunder and lightning combination. So in a lot of ways, immediately it looks like it holds down Singletary's upside. But see, Singletary looked great last year. Mm-hmm. If you were a fan of Singletary, that's what you wanted to see. This is how his first year looks. If he's on his way to being the best player he could be in the NFL. And that could be very, very good because we saw his burst. Joe Buscaglia, among others, saying he's going to have more of a role in the passing game this year. So that's exciting. You got the feeling watching Singletary that maybe there was more there if they used him in a more efficient way. So maybe having Zach Moss could help, and Singletary in year 2 can be better than he was in year 1 as we see that upward career curve for him. So I'm fine with taking Singletary at ADP, but the presence of Moss, just by the structure of the roles, will keep him from being able to get to that top 10, top 15 running back upside.
Yeah, and he's going to flirt with around 16, somewhere around there. That's what Devin Singletary is going to do. By the way, I want to rebel against the comparisons. Something that I've caused quite a stir on the Denver airwaves, Bloom, this week with my comparisons or shooting down other people's comparisons. People that say Moss is like Marshawn Lynch. No, he's not. No. If you want to talk about intent, sure. But Lynch always had that speed. This is my son. Don't know how many times we're going to get to say that anymore, but he always had that speed. So Moss doesn't have that speed. Still a complimentary piece behind Singletary. Behind those two, there's TJ Yeldon and Tywan Jones still playing running back.
Yeah, TJ Yeldon. What happened, Cease? What happened with TJ Yeldon?
We were seeing some stuff with Yeldon, and it's like, man, if he just got a more of a role.
Yeah, Fournette comes in.
Didn't happen.
They gave up on him in Jacksonville, and now it's he was second round pick, and he's not old yet. So yeah, you're right. Tywan Jones, more of a special teams guy, but they have their thunder and lightning duo. Buffalo, Bills Mafia. You're gonna love these guys, and you're gonna love your wide receivers.
You're gonna love Stephon Diggs. Now, the answer, Bloom, or the question that needs answers: how much does he help out Josh Allen with those deep passes? How much does his my ball mentality? He will go get it. Stephon Diggs, we know the game. We know that he's now, paid. He's now ready to emerge even more. We know what he can do. There's not much mystery with Stephon Diggs. It's just, how does Allen help him out? how does Allen take that next step to make sure that Diggs helps him out? It's Jerry Maguire's situation, Bloom. Help me, help you, help me, help me, help me, help me, help me. That's what Josh Allen's saying right now.
Yeah, and you would think this is going to help a lot. John Brown could have had a massive year last year. Josh Allen was just missing him. Now, with safeties really put in a bind, I mean, Diggs is actually the tougher guy at this point just because of where he's at in his career arc. I think that you have both of them going vertically. Some good things can happen if Allen dials in the deep ball. From a fantasy standpoint, Diggs has fallen from a 3rd-round pick last year to a 5th, 6th-round pick this year. See, I don't think that's far enough. When John Brown this time last year was a 13th round pick. Now you can get him in the 10th. He really performed more like the 5th, 6th round pick that Diggs is right now. So I see Diggs and Brown having similar outlooks for fantasy. Give me the cheaper one. Give me Smokey. Give me John Brown. But from a way to win games, from a tactical standpoint, especially if the running game is clicking and setting up play action passing, and that's the thing, you want Allen in structure. If I can give a prescription to the Bills, Josh Allen, for all of we're going to make this a Josh Allen show, for all of the talk about how horrible his accuracy was at Wyoming, he was one of the best quarterbacks out of play action. He was excellent at pump fakes. He was excellent at using his arm to manipulate the defense a la Ben Roethlisberger. And then he was also excellent at understanding all the moving pieces of what he was going to see when he turned his back to the defense. That's why play action can be a little bit tricky, because you turn your back to the defense and then you have to immediately execute. And Josh Allen's excellent at that. So keeping him in structure, keeping him where he's not thinking, might be the way to dial in that deep ball that we saw so many problems from last year. But either way, defenses have to honor Diggs and Brown, and that's such an exciting development for this offense.
Yeah, and Josh Allen has to honor running less. I mean, AFL Madden asks in the chat room, and it's about limiting the upside of Singletary and Moss. I will kind of flip that, Bloom, and answer it. Okay, will they make an emphasis for him to run less? Does Diggs take away some of those touchdown opportunities? Because he'll be a red zone target as well for Josh Allen. So, and again, I said it in the intro, like Josh Allen's going to score you fantasy points because he's going to run. Well, eventually you're going to have to stop running, or you turn into Cam Newton, where you're battling all sorts of injuries all the time. That's who Josh Allen is, although Newton's a better passer than he is. So, okay, how does that change things? How does Diggs change how much Allen would run towards the end zone?
Well, you would think they would encourage him to pick his spots, because you can do a lot more damage finding John Brown, finding Stephon Diggs downfield on a play, an extended play, than you can running the ball. And as you said, you open yourself up to punishment, to concussion. But at the same time, you think about it, right? You got Dawson Knox who can rip the seam. You've got Cole Beasley who's a handful, and you've got Diggs and Brown. Okay, if you have them all going vertical, then that's the time you want Josh Allen to run, if he doesn't see anything open up immediately. Colin Kaepernick I brought up. So another thing that the chat room is bringing up, love having the chat room here, is the idea of Stephon Diggs and frustration. And I think we've talked about this many times as soon as we saw the Diggs trade. And by the way, like the trade for Buffalo, like the idea of saying, instead of spending a first-round pick on Justin Jefferson or Denzel Mims or whoever, let's get someone that immediately we know is at the top of his game, and we can pay him because we've managed our cap well, because this is our window, another indication of that. But Diggs, he's not going to be the guy, just like he wasn't the guy because of Adam Thielen. So how's he going to deal with that? And then how is he going to deal with Allen either not seeing him or missing him badly? That's something we'll all be watching.
We're all watching that for sure, and all watching about the other guys. You went over Smoke quite well, Bloom, but we talked Diggs, we talked Smoke. Beasley can work the underneath stuff too. If you want him to go deep on a seam ripper, that's fine. I'm thinking of Dawson Knox too. We'll get to in just a little bit. But the value of Beasley, is it improved with Diggs there before we get to the guys behind him? But Beasley could have some what the heck flex appeal, certainly.
He was coming on to be just that and more. And you saw it, again, in this year where we may even amplify the doubt about a wide receiver on a new team. Beasley and Allen were really getting in sync as the year went on. So while for fantasy, you ask yourself, one ball to go around, this is also a low volume pass offense. It's another reason why even Diggs, for as good as he is in the 5th or 6th round, a tough sell. That being said, you have high efficiency if it's these accomplished receivers at the end of all these targets. Beasley's another one, and depending on injuries or depending on the matchup or depending on who Allen is really dialed into, we may revisit him.
Chat room is reacting as we continue on with the Buffalo Bills. Where's our man Lucifer Lightbringer? Love that guy.
Yeah.
We'll see if we can get him in the chat room here as well. Let's talk about those guys behind the big three for Buffalo. That's Gabriel Davis, Isaiah McKenzie, who they found a way to use him, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, it's not much, but at least they're getting something out of him. And then we look at Big Duke Williams, right? You always think of that CFL guy. Can he's flashed some? Like, they've got Robert Foster. You want to talk about flash? They've had guys that have flashed before, now further buried with the addition of Stephon Diggs, the emergence of Cole Beasley, by the way, who's the number 36 fantasy receiver last year. So definite flex appeal. But let's talk about these players behind those three.
Some interesting names and different contributions. And of course, Andre Roberts is there to help out with the special teams. You have the 2 draft picks, Gabriel Davis, who is almost certainly going to make the team as a 4th-round pick, and Isaiah Hodgins. They're both guys that are big, can win at the catch point. You know, Pitt has nightmares about Gabriel Davis. What you like is Gabriel Davis, in an NFL way, can work at the sidelines, can work going up for the ball at the sidelines, has sideline awareness. And, in the NFL, they like to use the sideline as an extra defender. Outside corners are really good at that. And Davis is already able to do that. So, John Brown's not with the team in a year or two. You have Davis being groomed as another downfield threat who can win the ball in the air. Isaiah McKenzie, like you said, Cecil, they found a way to use him, a water bug, a guy that you can do with jet sweeps and some different things with his speed. You also have Robert Foster, who had, as an undrafted free agent, a rookie season that really portend big things. And you can make an argument for these Alabama receivers. Well, they don't have the stats or they don't break out at Alabama because it's just not necessarily a high-flying passing game, and they have so much talent. Is it really something we're going to hold against Robert Foster when guys like Jerry Jeudy or someone like that was holding him off the field? I know that their careers didn't overlap much, but you get the idea. So Amari Cooper. The point is that Foster's rookie year, he looked like he was going to take off, and then, now he's got to fight to make the team. So that's something we're going to be watching here. Duke Williams, maybe more of a blocker, but had an impact when he showed up. Ray McLeod, kind of a running back, wide receiver, tweener. A lot of interesting names here, but only a couple of spots.
Yeah, and if I'm a team that doesn't have as many interesting names,
right,
one of these guys doesn't make the Bills, I'm scooping them up. Bottom line.
Yep.
Let's talk about Dawson Knox. As you mentioned, that connection there and just the ability that he has. Got to stay healthy. Of course, with Dawson Knox, we know last season and ranking 30th, only a couple of touchdowns. Touchdowns are going to change. Touchdowns are, very fluid in the NFL, and certainly fantasy GMs know that. But 28,388, okay, is it 40 catches this year? Is it 50 catches this year? Instead of a couple of touchdowns, is it 5 touchdowns? And that impact would be huge for Dawson Knox. Put him in the tight end 1 range.
Yeah, and with rookie tight ends, some encouraging numbers is that indicator of better things to come, right? Mark Andrews' rookie year numbers weren't overwhelming, but showed that he acclimated to the NFL. He's got chemistry with his quarterback. And I think we saw Josh Allen looking for Dawson Knox as a downfield tight end. We go back to Dawson Knox and see why were Dawson Knox's numbers so tiny in college. I mean, part of it was injuries, but Ole Miss. I mean, DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown, DeMarcus Lodge was, a good college receiver. So this is one of those warnings of using production-based models for college players because it dings a player when he just happens to play with a lot of other NFL-bound players, like we're talking about with Robert Foster. So we always have to add that into our model, how much NFL talent is around Dawson Knox, and he did stay healthy. So these are the things that make him, even though he was, I think, a 3rd-round pick, from a physical standpoint, he's what you look for in a 1st-round pick at tight end, and he showed that is going to show up on an NFL field. So maybe there's not a place for him. If 18, 20 tight ends get drafted in your league, he's on your waiver wire watch list. If it's a tight end premium league, obviously dynasty leagues, he's on your radar. And he's that guy, like we talked about with Blake Jarwin. You're making sure don't let John Brown get behind you. Don't let Stephon Diggs get behind you. Got to defend the running game. That leaves all of that juicy middle of the field for Dawson Knox.
I remember a couple of years ago when Tyler Kroft had a couple of 2-touchdown games, and you're like, maybe. Nah. Well, he leads the charge behind Dawson Knox.
Yeah, a bit overdrafted by Cincinnati and maybe a bit overpaid by Buffalo, especially now that they're seeing what they can get from Dawson Knox. Tommy Sweeney did a little bit. Jason Karoom was still on the roster, a converted wide receiver. Lee Smith, an extra offensive tackle. So it's all Dawson Knox. Yeah, receiving tight end. They got their guy.
They got their guy. And did the Dolphins get their guy? Tua Tagovailoa has declared himself 100% ready to go. What does that mean for the Miami Dolphins and every trickle-down thing after that? We'll get to that next. All right. You busy bee typing over there.
What's that? I'm just replying. I'm replying to our wonderful people in the chat room. I really try to make it so if you show up and you participate in the chat room, I try to recognize all of our people. I love our people. Yes. They make me feel seen and heard. And isn't that all what we all want, Cecil, especially people like you and me, just to feel like we are seen and heard?
All right. 3, 2, and 1. Well, it's been since the days of Dan Marino that the Dolphins have had a real franchise quarterback. They've got it with Tua Tagovailoa, so long as he stays healthy. And Bloom, just yesterday, as we record this on July 24th, just yesterday, Tua Tagovailoa has declared himself ready to go, 100% healthy. Now, we had all assumed when Tua was drafted, like, okay, 1, yes, we knew Miami wanted him bad. But 2, okay, they're going to go Ryan Fitzpatrick until Tua is ready, and he'll take over in week 8. Nah, this could be just a week 1 start, Tua Tagovailoa, and then that's got a lot of ramifications for the rest of this team that we'll get to. But let's talk about Tua. We already know Fitzmagic, but Tua's the story.
It is the story. And the story here is turning that cruise ship around. Part of that, see, sometimes when you get your crew together, like I want to sing about the Love Boat. This is in the Vikings episode. You get that crew together, and maybe, you ship out from shore, and right away you realize, we made a mistake. That was Chad O'Shea. They threw him overboard and brought in Chan Gailey. So we have a lot of fond memories. You say Chan Gailey in fantasy circles, Cease, it gives you a happy feeling, right? We have a positive association with Chan Gailey in fantasy circles. So that's a good thing. And of course, Ryan Fitzpatrick has a positive association with Chan Gailey. Fitzpatrick, arguably his best year in the league, came with Gailey and Brandon Marshall with the Jets. So from a fantasy standpoint, still in this coronavirus year, we want to invest in good organizations and continuity and things like that. But if Chad O'Shea was holding back the offense last year and they still had the second half of the year where things really started to come together around Ryan Fitzpatrick, and that was chapter 1. Chapter 2 is always why Fitzmagic doesn't stick with the team. So maybe that's what happens this year. Fitzpatrick starts the season, and maybe by week 6, week 7, now we're looking to Tua. I think you're right, Cease, to raise the possibility, because Tua is going to give you that aura that you're thinking, is this kid ready? Do we really want to hand the keys over to him? He's going to make you think yes. I mean, think about his origin story in college football. In the national title game, you'd hand over the keys to him and he brings home the trophy. So I can imagine if they're asking themselves, are we really going to do this? If he's physically sound, you say yes. At the same time, this is a team that has a long-term plan. They're doing the long game with Tua and how much he's been banged up in college. Maybe you give him a redshirt year, and the team certainly likes Ryan Fitzpatrick. So you can argue this either way. This is one we're going to watch closely. But, Cease, I think you're right. With the trends of the NFL over the last 10 years or so, expect the first-round rookie to start earlier than later.
Earlier than later. And Bloom, I did it.
Yeah,
you
summoned
really talking about him. I brought
summoned him. Yeah.
And everyone needs to check out his YouTube
He knows
channel.
about the mystical powers that are going on. The headbands amplify them, obviously.
Yes, they do. Putting out the powers. So what's up, LML? Great to see you as well. As we continue on here, talking about Tua, do people mistake how much he's going to run? I honestly don't think he needs to run that much. He's maybe been miscast or misdiagnosed by some as like a scrambler. Like, nah, he can get out of his own way for sure. He can scoot, but I don't think he's going to be looking to run, Bloom.
No, and he's a pocket passer, and he's a pocket passer with a very quick processor, great anticipation, great field vision, really understands all the moving parts of everything he's working with. So I hope that they can craft an offense to intersect with that. And it's not that Tua's injury prone, Cease. It's just that he sacrifices his body for the team. He just doesn't have regard for his health. And it's a positive quality in a player, even though for fantasy, we can start to, in an extreme, it's like Bob Sanders or something, where, you want the guy to not just sacrifice his body to make plays because you burn the candle at both ends of the NFL. But with Tua, we have somebody that, maybe for Devontae Parker, who is more of a contested catch guy, Ryan Fitzpatrick and his style really helped light the fuse for Parker last year. Not that Tua's not, he's not necessarily a negative in that area, but it's just a different style of passing. Maybe Tua is better for an Albert Wilson. Maybe Tua is better for Mike Gesicki in the middle of the field. At the same time, we have a idea, when the Chargers put in Justin Herbert, I know it's Tyrod Taylor. It's going to be rough, though. When Tua comes in, it might not be rough. It might be fun to watch both for fantasy and Dolphins fans.
This team has a ton of talent on both sides of the ball. Look at what they've done to construct this team in bloom. We probably should have started out. My bad.
Yeah.
But Brian Flores. Yeah. Magnifique, because he's not coming in trying to be Belichick.
No.
And also coming from the Shanahan tree.
Right.
Brian Flores, he's got the attention of this team.
Yep.
They've got talent. They've got a quarterback that everybody can believe in. And they showed last year. Remember, everyone's like, tank for Tua.
Right.
And they didn't. They still got Tua. And they didn't. So I think Flores and just kind of that mentality of this team, they could win a lot more games. They could be a lot more competitive. And from a fantasy lens, that means good things for you. Now, Ryan Fitzpatrick behind him. We already talked about him. And there's Josh Rosen. I will say this, Bloom. I talked to, let's just say someone around the program, someone around that team that works in the building, and had told me Josh Rosen does everything right. Like, Josh Rosen just stays quiet in the meetings, and Josh Rosen, he's not doing the Mike McCoy, I'm the smartest guy in the room type thing. He's just not good. So, because I was thinking when I talked to this person, I was like, okay, you're going to tell me like, oh, Rosen's this big pain behind the scenes and Rosen doesn't do anything. Nope. Rosen does it all. He's just not good. So there's your Josh Rosen update.
Trade him for a fourth or a fifth now, to see what you can get
it's still
trade in value.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. Really quick to go back to your Flores point. I just want to revisit this. Because, see, you remember when they signed Ryan Fitzpatrick last year and was like, oh, you're ruining it. You're supposed to tank for, you're going to win some games now. Right. Guess what they did? They went back to him and Rosen was not very good, and they did win games. And they got Tua. I mean, this is the thing. People should not be presumptuous. You should always be going into the locker room and the culture of the team saying, losing is not something we just learn to accept. Losing is not something we just learn to expect. We love to compete. We want to win. We want to land that first shot that exposes where the Death Star can be blown up. And they did. And when we think of the Death Star being blown up in the Patriots' history, the Dolphins were the ones that staggered it. In a season that was a lost season. So, Devontae Parker over Stephon Gilmore, NFL Defensive Player of the Year, a little preview of the wide receiver take. So I think that everybody should look back at this Dolphin story as a sign, and Flores, that you shouldn't just gut everything. And this is a picture for the Panthers and Jags right now, because the Jags had no oomph. They had no competitiveness at the end of the year last year. We'll see about the Panthers. The Dolphins did it the right way.
The Dolphins did it the right way, and this offseason going out to get the big man, Jordan Howard, but he's going to work with Matt Breida in this running back by committee. There's some thunder, there's some lightning. How does this work out from a fantasy perspective? I mean, this one's very easy to figure out what the roles are, right. But what does that mean for fantasy GMs out there?
This is tough in some ways, but it's easy. Here's the easy way to put it, Cease. It's Miami's running game. It was one of the worst running games in the league last year. Quick, name one starter on the Miami offensive line.
Done.
I mean, we just sit here like do. You know, I mean, they had like Ted Karras who filled in for David Andrews in New England last year. We'll see who they start at tackle. Maybe 2 rookies are starting at tackle, the first and second round rookies, Austin Jackson and Robert Hunt, who were more of projects. Unlike those first 4, these guys were projects at tackle, not that they aren't high upside projects. So do you really want to invest in a running back behind this offensive line after Brian Fitzpatrick, leading rusher for the team last year? You know, that being said, Jordan Howard can play. Matt Breida can play. We know that. And Matt Breida can't stay healthy. We know that. So Jordan Howard can end up getting the goal line carries. He can end up getting more work when Breida is dinged. Breida can be an explosive player and maybe on 10 or 12 touches a game can occasionally have some best ball relevance. And Jordan Howard had that shoulder injury last year that was mysterious and never really went away. Maybe that comes up again this year. Maybe Breida gets his chance in a contract year. You know, the Dolphins like Breida. They gave up a 5th round pick for him. Although I think they were in a situation where they couldn't roster all their draft picks anyway, even if they had cut like 10 players. So they had too many draft picks. But they're still paying Breida like 3-point-something million, the RFA contract. So they like him. We'll see. It's a big upgrade in terms of talent in this backfield, at least if we look at the backfield after Kenyon Drake was traded. At the same time, probably the Dolphins it's not the running game where you look for the breakout running back of the year.
This is not the running game you're looking for, but a certain upgrade. And the upgrades on the offensive line, we could debate on Austin Jackson this year, the rookie from USC, and just how good he is or maybe not good he is. But this team has done things and built things, not necessarily the slow way, but they understand their weaknesses.
Right.
Like how many teams out there, Bloom, I've got one I'm thinking of in particular, like just won't admit their weaknesses.
Yeah.
We're fine. Garrett Bowles, we're totally fine. What are you talking about? We don't need that. The Dolphins have identified their weaknesses, and they've worked to build them. Patrick Laird, Myles Gaskin, Malcolm Perry. There's Kalen Ballage. Oh, Kalen Ballage. Yeah, he's from Colorado, so that's cool, but he's not a good running back.
No, passing down backs, maybe Gaskin or Laird. And Laird's awesome. By the way, we helped Laird make it to the next round of the best prep player in California in the last 10 years or something like that. Patrick Laird will always be a hero of the fantasy community. He's in his brief moment of fantasy relevance, he went on a fantasy football podcast with Davis Maddock, and for that, we will always love him.
We will love him. By the way, if I summoned Lucifer means Lightbringer, Bloom, you have to summon our pot stoner degenerate Jason.
Yeah.
From Greeley. So
No.
Put out the vibe. Putting out the vibe for Devontae Parker and Preston Williams. Again.
Yeah.
Preston Williams make a big play. The Parker thing's interesting and Tua and all that, but for me, it's like, what's Preston Williams do for an entire season? Now, he had an ACL surgery in November, so it would be less than 12 months by the start of the regular season. But I just want to know, I want to see him, is it 1,000-yard season? Is it 6-7 touchdowns? Like all of these numbers are well within reason for Preston Williams, especially when you got a playmaker and a passer like you do with Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, there's some stuff I want to say about Parker, but we'll start with Preston for the case of continuity. And his breakout game came in the year that he tore. Breakout game came in the game that he tore his ACL, so it was kind of forgotten. And I'm seeing that in Dynasty, he's being overlooked right now. In a redraft, he's certainly being overlooked. And he's got that big frame, speed, the game at the catch point. He translated, and he fell out of the draft because of off-field reasons, not because of on-field reasons. Another Colorado State guy. And this pick, and so much as it was a pick, it was undrafted free agent signing, is working out wonderfully. And they have their wide receiver group, but especially Devontae Parker. And see, someone as we transition to Parker, let's remember, 5th-year option not picked up, earned himself an extension during the season last year. And they paid him a pretty modest, 2-year, $9 million deal to keep him, even though they didn't pick up his 5th-year option. So there can be happy endings. And this is another example of the Adam Gase factor.
Ooh.
There's so many players that we could draw a line. Kenyon Drake, Ryan Tannehill, and then the players that we can say what happened once they were being coached by Adam Gase. So we can keep that in mind. But Devontae Parker, I think he's Rodney Dangerfield. He's still not getting respect.
No, not getting respect, and able to make plays after play after play, and took a chance on himself. The Parker story is interesting because they don't pick up his 5th-year option. He goes to his agent, say, I want to be here, figure it out. They sign him for like half Eddie of what he could have gotten, and he's flourished. So you love seeing that.
And he's still only going in the 6th, 7th round of drafts, even though he was close to a wide receiver 1 last year. So the debate is here, was it just that Preston Williams went down, and then that opened up more of the targets for Parker, and this also applies to Gesicki when you're doing your fantasy analysis. On the other hand, that was when the offense got good in the second half of the year. So maybe the bump just coincided with this offense becoming competent. Maybe they just start ignoring Chad O'Shea and saying, let's just go out there, Fitzmagic saying, don't worry, let's just nod, and then don't worry, I'll point at you when I'm going to throw it to you, something like that. So I'm going to bet on Devontae Parker's talent here because we always saw him as somebody that could become one of those alpha number 1 receivers. He played like it last year, but he's not being drafted like it.
Mm-hmm. And remember who his college quarterback was?
Teddy.
Him and Teddy look good at Louisville. Of course, Parker looking good now in the NFL. Albert Wilson, okay, we just talked about Cole Beasley. Could Wilson have a little shades of Cole Beasley to his game? Could there be some what the heck flex appeal while Beasley has regular deep flex appeal? Like Albert Wilson, if he's healthy, I mean, there's some flex appeal there.
Yeah, well, he's a good slot receiver, and he's a receiver who can make some plays. Dolphins gave him a pretty good contract considering that he hadn't contributed that much in his first stop in Kansas City. So there's something here for sure. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy. But if he does, I think this is a guy who maps well to Tua's strengths. And then, we still have Alan Hearns back in South Florida, who at one point looked like an amazing breakout, speaking of undrafted free agent breakout receivers in their rookie year. You still have Isaiah Ford, a Matt Waldman favorite. So they have absolutely some guys even further down on the depth chart. Gary Jennings, Mac Hollins, some guys who were 4th-round draft picks who didn't work out with their first team. Jakeem Grant coming back from his Achilles. This is a guy that we've seen these undersized players who can play some in the backfield, who can contribute in the return game, can play some as a receiver. You like what Jakeem Grant could do there, like a Taylor Gabriel kind of player. So you just want to see now with Chan Gailey, who's good with the ingredients, we'll see what he cooks up here.
Cooking it up with the tight ends, and Mike Gesicki was never a player that I was high on coming out of college. I'm like, he's big and stiff, whatever. Like, he doesn't move well. And then last season, you saw Mike Gesicki take that massive leap forward and finishes the number 11 fantasy tight end with those 50 catches, 51, 570, and 5 touchdowns. Now, if we're talking about, other weapons emerging, we're talking about Tua. Well, does Gesicki stay consistent as a low-end tight end 1 for fantasy GMs? Bloom, and were you, like me, kind of shocked that Gesicki looked like that?
Yeah. Well, again, the Adam Gase effect, right? Remember what Adam Gase was doing with him in his rookie year? Block, right. Get in there and block some more. Show us you can block. Guy who has some of the best athleticism we've seen since Vernon Davis at tight end. Show us some more blocking. Gase is gone. And we saw him used more like the big receiver that he is. You saw more coordination. You saw more competitive toughness, because it's one thing to have the measurables. He's big and he's quick and he can jump out of the gym and he can run. But can you do it with NFL guys around you who mean you harm? Didn't see that as much. As the season went on, you did see it. So if you're targeting him as your tight end 1 in a late round tight end strategy, or even tight end 2, look, even if you take Kelsey and Kittle, you can still take your favorite sleeper tight end, because if they hit, you can trade your Kelsey or Kittle. Okay, so whether you're waiting at tight end and trying to find that guy who is this year's Mark Andrews, or you take an early tight end, but you want to really stick it to the rest of your league because you have a good idea who the breakout tight end is going to be, and you get him too. Gesicki could be that guy. Certainly looked like after about a year plus of waiting, he is turning into the player that we expected him to be.
And instead of taking meaningless handcuffs, which many people do, and I'm just get his backup. Yeah. Like, I'm just collecting tight ends, man, because if it's position scarcity, there's only so many, and not very many of them are good. So if you can find that Mandrew that hits whoever it is, like Gesicki last year, like, okay, you can corner the market. Any love for Durham Smythe? Yay, nay, no.
Right. It's like if it's not a Stanford tight end, it's a Notre Dame tight end, right?
Right.
It's on one or the other. Want to see him become a 2-way tight end, use some 2 tight end sets. Loose Freudian Lightbringer talking about maybe using some 2-back sets, putting Breida, with jet sweep motion. Chan Gailey's not shy. Chan Gailey's going to look at all these elements he has. He's going to try to cook up some plays, some formations, some pre-snap motions, some personnel sets to put the opponent at a disadvantage. So Norm Smythe, it's about time for him to start contributing as a second tight end.
Wasn't it Tyler Thigpen that Chan Gailey made like decent with the Chiefs?
Yeah. I mean, that's it.
And he worked well with Cordell. I always loved Chan for what he did with Cordell, man.
Yes. Let him play. Let him play, buddy.
Let him play. Get on. Come on, bud. What are you doing, bud? All right. That is a wrap for the Dolphins. It is the preseason watch list as we go through the AFC East. 32 teams, 32 episodes, and every skill position player that you want to know about, we talk about right here on this show. Bill Belichick played the quarterback market like a fiddle. Did the double go down to Georgia, or did he go to Foxborough? I don't know what that means, but we'll explain something next.
Great.
Yeah. You were talking about old 70s country before we jumped on the air, right?
Yeah, didn't Charlie Daniels die recently, right?
Yeah, he did. Like a week ago, something like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That song is just like, as a kid growing up around that time, late 70s, early 80s.
When the band of demons joined in and sounds something like this, dun, 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 that was like almost heavy metal, you know?
Dun, 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 dun.
Like a little Black Sabbath.
Exactly. Black Sabbath down on the farm.
Riding a tractor. Okay.
Uh-oh. Hold on one second. Alexa, stop playing. Alexa, see, sometimes this is why you don't want to have Alexa or Google in your room when you're recording, because you might accidentally issue some command.
Say Charlie Daniels. Just start playing Charlie Daniels.
I think I was going to play some Tim McGraw or something.
Tim McGraw?
No, don't play Tim McGraw.
I've been exposed. The government listening devices that we all have. Usually we just carry them around our
willingly, exactly.
Cell phones.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. They'll listen to me. Hello?
Yeah.
Come on. All right, let's go on in 3, 2, 1. How did he do it, Bloom? How in the blankety blank blank? Sorry, Joe. Blank. Did he do it? Belichick sitting out this whole time. Everyone's saying they're just going to go with Jarrett Stidham, and then he looked really good in the preseason. We'll talk plenty about Jarrett Stidham. But when the New England Patriots are able to sign Cam Newton for a song, for steal a deal, and get their starter, I know it's not officially the starter, Bloom, you just got to shake your head. Belichick did it again. Newton with a ton to prove. And Newton's effect on this offense will be grand. So let's talk about Cam Newton, the lead quarterback for the New England Patriots.
Yeah, this is exciting. I mean, it's kind of way not exciting in the sense that we were looking forward to exhaling, having somebody else represent the AFC in the Super Bowl, or we had that last year with Kansas City, but represent the AFC East as a home team in the divisional round, or the wild card round now, I guess, with all the changes. Anyway, what I really want to talk about is Cam Newton, because he was just completely done wrong by the NFL this offseason. One of the best quarterbacks of this era. I don't care if you don't know about the health of his foot or shoulder. He should have never been on. It should have been like when Peyton Manning was available, right, Cease?
Mm-hmm.
There should have been teams courting him. There should have been teams lined up to say, Cam, come here. This is why we'll make, cities should be having campaigns. Cam, come to Denver and enjoy the green chili or something. You know what I mean? Cam, come to San Francisco and have our clam chowder in a bread bowl, right? And instead, Cam Newton sat out there and sat out there and sat out there. And it isn't even like Bill Belichick engineered this as some master plan, because for the longest time after the draft, we saw, we're going forward with Jarrett Stidham. Josh McDaniels' offense, people around team beat writers saying the Patriots don't want to really have to ramp up someone in their offense in this kind of no off-season year. And the league just let Cam Newton sit out there and let him sit out there. And at a certain point, Bill Belichick has to say, well, okay, of course we'll sign him. And it can't hurt. Zero risk when he's basically paid veteran minimum, and even with incentives, $7.5 million. I mean, that's what Andy Dalton's getting. So this was too easy. And as we talked about when we were recording earlier in the preseason watch list, watch who Bill Belichick gushes about. And I know Bill Belichick will gush about players sometimes to almost do the reverse Bloom, and say, he's so good, he's so good. But really, Because what do we do, Cease, whenever we think about Bill Belichick as someone who wants to hurt our fantasy teams? He's going to take away what a team likes to do best or what their comfort zone is. And Bill Belichick, when he talks about going up against Cam Newton and as a defense not knowing how to defend him, not being able to cut him off at every pass, the same way that Patrick Mahomes does this, the same way that Lamar Jackson does this, where the game is non-linear with them. It's not like you can go through some sort of progression of thinking and understand that if you can take away this, you'll force them into this, and then they'll make this mistake because they're dictating the terms. That's Cam Newton. And I think that Josh McDaniels is going to be able to make something to fit around Cam Newton. Cam Newton is a fantasy quarterback this year. Obviously the time to buy him in dynasty leagues and in early best ball drafts was before he was signed, but I still don't think he's getting the respect he deserves as someone that, look, when he's on the field and healthy, he's a top 10, if not top 5 fantasy quarterback. Maybe he won't be quite that this year, but he's certainly worth his pick. And I'm excited, even though there's that feeling of inevitability watching the Patriots and Belichick over the years of them, where they're going to find a way to win, they're going to get a call or something like that. I'm just glad that Cam Newton is going to have a chance to remind the rest of the league how good he is, even if he's got stormtroopers behind him.
Well, and even as the people of the NFL rediscover, this is what you do with the talent that you build around. This is how you be creative with the talent that you have there. And the New England Patriots are one of those teams where, what do you do good? What do you don't do good? Okay, we're going to avoid what you don't do good, and we're going to do what you do good, and we're going to keep doing that, and we're going to break it over people's face. We're going to keep attacking that same way. And with Newton, it could lead to a lot of wonderful things. Plus, Bloom, if they lose him, let's say Newton goes on and leaves, they get a third-round pick.
And Cease, on the McDaniels tip again, I'll tee this one up for you. Who did Josh McDaniels go out of his way to take in the first round and be his quarterback when he had control of a franchise in Denver?
Tim Tebow.
Yeah.
That's who he wanted.
Put it together.
Putting it together equals Cam Newton, the starter. What does it mean for Jarrett Stidham? And Stidham did look good in the preseason last year. Preseason watch list, right? Preseason games don't count, but they do matter. And I was interested in Jarrett Stidham. Had we done this show without Cam Newton, we wouldn't be saying some of the things like we would, because New England could win the division again. Sorry, Buffalo.
Yeah.
With Cam Newton. I wouldn't be saying that with Jarrett Stidham, but I'd be interested. Hey, this Belichick, this is McDaniels. They like him. He did have first-round tools before his senior season at Auburn. 2 Auburn guys, by the way. Before Stidham's senior season, there was conversation about watch this guy work his way into the first round. And then he didn't. And we've seen that before with other quarterbacks. But, all right, Stidham had first-round tools. He had a bad senior season. What's it mean now that he's going to sit behind Cam?
It's probably better for his career to be behind someone for a second year and learn this offense. I think they still plan on giving him a chance to be the quarterback of the long term. Maybe just not this year. Lost some talent around him at Auburn. Maybe that explains more than some erosion in his ability or overestimation of it. And see, if he were to be the starter, it would have been like Pittsburgh last year with the quarterback play, except you just hope don't lose the game for us. Just don't lose the game, and we should be okay with the defense that we have. And they did lose Kyle Van Noy and Jamie Collins in free agency. But otherwise, the defense is very much going to be one of the best defenses in the league still. So Stidham would have just been tasked with protecting the ball, keeping the game close, running the plays as designed, and not cause anything too bad to happen if the plays as designed didn't work. So, Brian Hoyer's probably on his way out here, but we saw Hoyer, this is that guy. Remember, as a undrafted free agent rookie, Hoyer was the backup to Tom Brady coming off of ACL surgery. So there's trust in Hoyer, but they don't need Hoyer now that Newton is there probably starting. See, Newton's the starter. Newton's the starter.
Newton's the starter. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Any love for Brian Lewerke? Any Spartans love in you?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that, of course, we'll watch him probably be a practice squad guy, and Patriots developing those quarterbacks. We'll keep tabs on him.
Yeah. It's preseason watch list with no preseason games, but whatever. We'll make it. We'll make it happen. Don't need to see the preseason games to know that New England's going to have a 3-headed running back by committee that will frustrate and infuriate fantasy GMs. So last year's Sony Michel, James White, Rex Burkhead take Bloom, and it's probably going to be the same.
Yeah, Burkhead had his contract restructured, so we know he's going to make the team like from $2.5 million down to $1 million, but that's guaranteed he's going to be okay. Johnny Michel had off-season foot surgery to relieve discomfort. He's just never going to be the back we saw at Georgia. Sad, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're never going to see Georgia, Sony Michel in the NFL, but that could mean we see Damian Harris in his multi-back backfield from Alabama emerge this year. So watch that when Mike Reese. And Mike Reese is one of the least inclined to create hype or buzz of any of the beat writers. So when he says, yeah, Damian Harris is going to take a step forward and have a bigger role this year, I'm listening. Chances are Harris and Michel will split work to the extent that neither of them are reliable from week to week unless you have Cam Newton at the goal line, taking away rushing touchdowns. And there's James White. A lot of pessimism about James White without Tom Brady. However, remember, Cam Newton was the quarterback for most of Christian McCaffrey's first 100-catch year. So Newton knows how to utilize someone who can catch balls out of the backfield. But you have to think that James White will be a smaller part of the offense than he was with Tom Brady. So it's a mess. And maybe now that it's not a Brady offense and it's not probably as potent as it was at its peak years, this is back to the old, it's a Belichick backfield. You'd probably just avoid it.
Yeah, and that's what takes the excitement away from me for Damian Harris. Even with our guy Mike Reese saying that, like, Damian Harris is incredibly talented, and the Patriots won't use him enough. So, yeah, there you go. That's kind of the way it happens. Now, the receivers, Julian Edelman catching passes from Cam Newton. I always love those offseason news items, like Kyler Murray's getting his teammates together to throw at park. Yeah. Like, and so is everybody else. But Julian Edelman was catching passes from Cam Newton. N'Keal Harry's the interesting one, though, and Mohamed Sanu. So let's talk about all three of these guys. I think we kind of got to lump them together, Bloom. Sanu, interesting if he can be healthy. It wasn't last year and didn't look good when he came over to New England. Harry is a run after the catch specialist, the first-round pick, although the Patriots have missed on early receivers before. And then Edelman there, Mr. Steady Eddie, but just like James White, no Tom Brady. So what does that mean for Julian Edelman, N'Keal Harry, and Mohamed Sanu with Cam Newton running the show?
So really, Cease, this is where I can circle back around and say, before the Cam Newton signing, this could have been a short episode. We could have just said, avoid all the Patriots. You know, even with Cam Newton, do we really want to go dabbling in the Patriots passing game? Julian Edelman, I think a lot of his value is based on his chemistry with Tom Brady. And I just don't see Cam Newton leaning on him the same way. And Mohamed Sanu can do a lot of those same things, and they want to get their second-round pick value out of him in the trade. And then you have N'Keal Harry. Now, he's interesting because we saw back with Kelvin Benjamin that Cam Newton will throw a guy open. Cam Newton will trust this guy to just go up there and get it. So I think that gives Harry a shot this year, and at least he's showing some interest there. So maybe if you throw a late-round pick at any one of these three guys, it's Harry, just because he's going to be in the best position to make big plays and take a step forward with the change from Stidham to Newton. But chances are this is going to be a very low-volume passing game, and it's going to be a team that aims to win games 17-6, not 31-28.
Well, and here's the thing, Bloom. If I'm going to take a chance, it is going to be on Harry. It is going to be late, depending on the depth of your draft, because you don't do that for average. I'm going to throw in a late-round pick on Mohamed Sanu. Hope he's wide receiver 55 this year. You know, you throw in that pick because maybe Harry hits. Maybe he explodes onto the scene. Like, I'll take that chance late. And then, again, capture windows. I'm all about capturing windows. N'Keal Harry's window is a lot more interesting than Mohamed Sanu or Julian Edelman. Jacoby Myers getting some love.
Yeah.
As he should in our chat room, continuing on now. So let's talk about the rest of these players and receivers for the Patriots.
Yeah, Myers showed more than any of us expected last year, but still not a lot of it was turned into production. But he's going to stick in the NFL. He's going to be a solid NFL receiver, no higher than fourth on this depth chart. And then Marquise Lee trying to come back from the dead. Damiere Byrd, a lot of history with Cam Newton. He is some vertical speed. Jeff Thomas, more of a third, fourth round pick in terms of tape, off-field issues out of Miami. He's another speed receiver. So you want that guy to take the top off of the defense. You have it there. Even Will Hastings, I'll just mention, they brought in Stidham's slot receiver. So, you know, it's good. They're responsive to their quarterbacks. Whatever. Patrick Mahomes gets Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Jared Stidham gets Will Hastings.
Let's talk about their tight ends with Rob Gronkowski long gone to Tampa Bay, of course. Devin Asiasi will probably be the lead guy. Now, Dalton Keene, Chatfield Chargers, baby.
Yeah.
Was a high school teammate with my son. They were freshman quarterbacks together. And Dalton, his folks live just right down the road, about 5 minutes from where I live, out here in Roxborough. But Dalton Keene, I was talking to Liam last night, enjoying a tumbler of whiskey with my son, which was very, very cool. And just kind of going over, watching NFL highlights. And he's like, don't sleep on, what do you call him? Deke? I think that was his nickname. So he's like, don't sleep on Dalton. Because I was like, I think Dalton's going to be mostly a blocker, mostly like an H-back, fullback, tight end, whatever. Because Dalton could be Taysom Hill if they wanted him to be. He's a great athlete and a great quarterback. So Devin Asiasi is the interesting one here from a dynasty perspective, Bloom. I'll probably pick up Dalton just because, he's a friend. So,
sure.
But outside of that, not expecting a whole lot from any of these tight ends.
See, we said that we were going to be talking about Liam Lammey and his fantasy prospects. And I mean, a guy that he was a freshman quarterback with, that's pretty close. The universe is winking at you, That's close enough. Hand grenades and horseshoes, Keene and Asiasi were the guys that Belichick moved up for. So it's not quite Hernandez and Gronk, all right? But it is this idea of eventually, maybe not as rookies, being able to have a two tight end set. We have two very different guys. Keene, actually very athletic, but also more of a move tight end, H-back type. Asiasi, big, mean, late bloomer, has lots of physical tools. He's the more exciting one for fantasy from a dynasty standpoint, and if there is going to be some sort of rookie impact. Also, just as a side note, and this is about football and relationships, cease, and narratives, Belichick calls up Chip Kelly when he's on the clock, but when it's time to make that pick or decide to trade up, and gets that endorsement from Chip Kelly. And that's part of why this player is on this team. And the other thing to think about here is by settling their grievances with Antonio Brown and the estate of Aaron Hernandez, they freed up like $6.5 million of cap room. So tight end may be a position they would want to address with that cap room. Also, they might just hold on to it during the season and see what they need. Something to think about.
Something to consider as we continue on through the preseason watch list. It is 32 teams, 32 episodes, every skill position player that you want to know about. The Jets and the Adam Gase dumpster fire. Who's the first coach to be fired in 2020? We'll tell you that next. All right. Let's go in 3, 2, 1. You got to feel bad for Jets players. I really do. I feel bad for Sam Darnold. I feel bad for my man, Denzel Mims. Love that guy. What, Chris Herndon? You want to just go down the list? Jamal Adams, he hates being there. He hates these cans. And he, can't stand Adam Gase. It's gone off the rails. And our man, Manish Mehta, if you ever want to know anything about the Jets, of course, you're looking at what Manish is doing. It's all bad. I think the Gase kind of maw will be on this entire conversation, Bloom, when we discuss this Jets offense and all the skill position players that you want to give a damn about.
Yeah. Yeah. This could be a short show because of Adam Gase. I mean, point to after the Broncos era, somebody who has played their best football that translates for fantasy under Adam Gase. We can look at last year, Le'Veon Bell, massive underachiever with Adam Gase. Robbie Anderson, massive underachiever with Adam Gase. And everything we hear from the outside, Manish, and I know Manish, we love Manish, friend of the show, been on the show, and I know Manish depending on who you ask, you get different opinions about Manish, but I appreciate his willingness to be a bit of a muckraker in the football circle, where he will give guys a platform to speak out. The Jamal Adams interview that came out today. Check it out, folks. It's very frank. Very candid. See, it's rare for players to truly be candid. And some of it's the organization, because now you have this Woody Johnson stuff. Woody Johnson, the rare, Peter O'Toole comes to mind. Anyway, Mike Freeman saying that there's Jets players that want Woody Johnson out, and maybe even players who aren't on the Jets that will speak out against Woody Johnson. So it's a culture. We're thinking of Washington. It's like Jets fans and Washington football team fans. That's who we feel sorry for year after year, to put your heart into a team. Because a lot of times it's your connection to watching the games with with your dad or mom, or just, your first jacket as a kid that you were real excited about was the football team starter jacket you got, or it's a connection to your childhood. It's a connection to positive memories. And these owners have just steered these teams into the rocks. So we feel for you, Jets fans. And as you said, we feel for you, Sam Darnold, because all he knows is Adam Gase so far in his career.
Right.
You pray for a second team, or you pray for this organization to do a 180, because I don't know how Adam Gase doesn't get fired. I mean, maybe if he wins 10, 11, 12 games this year, okay.
That's not going to happen.
Right? I mean, it's just, look, sometimes it's just that certain messages get amplified and certain ones stay quiet. But when there's this many players and looking from the outside, this many problems, Adam Gase even projects this arrogance. Well, y'all can't do it. I'm the coach. I have the say. Y'all can't do anything about it. And I think that he's showing you his management style and why the Dolphins seem to have a weight lifted from their shoulders. So many players from the Dolphins seem to have a weight lifted from their shoulders when he was gone. And now here we are again. It's the same story with the Jets, same story with Sam Darnold. So outside of 2 quarterback super flex leagues, you're not really interested in him.
Yeah, I don't believe, this is just a guess, if anyone were to call Peyton Manning for an endorsement, he might not say the same things. That's just a guess.
Right. Well, it's good to have friends in high places.
I guess so. How does he not ruin Darnold? I don't even want to talk about fantasy, dude. I'm just like, yeah. I really like Sam Darnold. I mean, I really like Sam Darnold. And I'm just afraid, like, the Adam Gase maul will be on this. And it's like, how do you not get ruined by a bad coach early in your career? I'm sure we have an example of it, Bloom. I'm racking my brain quickly. Maybe my headband's too tight. But I'm like, bad coach early in your career, you're able to break away from it. Like, I don't want us to not see full Sam Darnold because Adam Gase ruined him before they fired him and actually got a decent coach in there.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably what we're looking at. Watch, he'll be the Patriots quarterback in like 2023. Ended up being a really good quarterback, something like that. Some in an organization that can just hit reset with him. But it's a shame because what you see with Darnold is you see individual plays that show you why he was the 3rd overall pick, why the Jets moved up for him, and then you don't see that consistently where the culture, the scheme, it's just not internally consistent what's going on with the Jets. And you're right. It's difficult to think of quarterbacks that were able to come back from that. But Ryan Tannehill.
Mm-hmm. All right. Next up. We don't need to talk about Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
It's like, really, when Joe Flacco signed? Really? Okay. James Morgan is interesting, right? Because he's got that big arm now coming out of FIU. That's it. I mean, he takes a zillion chances with the ball. He's got terrible accuracy, but his athletics got a big arm. So, hell, Bloom, preseason watch list. If there was a preseason, I'd be watching James Morgan. What did I see him at the Shrine Bowl? Mm-hmm. Can't remember. I think I saw him somewhere in this area. So he's interesting. He's a name. He's got a big arm. Whatever.
Yeah, he plays through injuries. He's tough. He's a leader. He's going to have his guys rally behind him. But if Joe Flacco in the neck issue, he's probably not going to be playing for a little while. And we'll see how many more years we talk about Joe Flacco on the preseason watch list.
I bet we'll talk about Frank Gore longer. Frank Gore is a transition behind Le'Veon Bell, professional. And okay, Le'Veon Bell. Speaking of one of those guys that hates to be around Adam Gase, let's talk Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah. And see, so talk about racking your brain, and we'll talk about this in the AFC South when we get to Jacksonville. How many times have we had a running back to project where we know the organization doesn't want the running back, but he's still on the team? Because that's what we have here. If it wasn't for the guaranteed money, Le'Veon Bell would not be on the Jets. If it wasn't for the timing of the hiring of Adam Gase and GM firing and everything like that, Bell probably wouldn't have been signed. If it was up to Gase, he wouldn't have been signed. So Le'Veon Bell greatly underachieved last year. People were taking him in the first round. He was more like a running back too. I mean, a high floor guy because of his involvement in the passing game. But you just wonder if this year with the team moving on, I mean, maybe if the offense gets a little better. This is also a team, by the way, that's rebuilding their offensive line. They're doing what the Bills did last year. It's almost like open auditions, open tryouts on the offensive line. This is not a great year to be doing that. So that's not great for Le'Veon Bell. Poor Le'Veon Bell, you just think at this point, you got your payday, you won. So now my tone has changed, right? See, he didn't win. I mean, he ended up with Adam Gase, right? And everything that comes with that. He got the payday. I think if the Steelers and Bell would both be happy to do this over again and find some way to meet in the middle. But end of the third, early fourth round, maybe Bell is still there. It seems kind of crazy because it's Le'Veon Bell. I think you still resist. You still pass. I'd rather, speaking of the Steelers, I'd rather have James Conner than Le'Veon Bell. I'd rather have Chris Carson than Le'Veon Bell. I'd rather have Melvin Gordon than Le'Veon Bell in that part of my draft.
See, look how evil Adam Gase is. He's causing division in our chat room. Although Ryan does break things up, he's like, Gase is a turtle on a fence post. No idea how he got where he is, but clearly someone helped him get there. All right.
That sums it up, yeah.
That is perfect. Well, Michael P. Ryan. All right, he's there. Kenneth Dixon. Again, some interesting names. There's Josh Adams. Josh Adams can play. And I even like Trenton Cannon.
Sure.
All right, hard-charging Virginia State running back and receiver as well. Okay. Interesting names that we'll watch, and hopefully Adam Gase isn't there much longer, and these guys can maybe do something.
Yeah, we don't know who the backup is. It's probably 2 or 3 guys. Josh Adams, a good straight-ahead runner, better than I thought after watching his last year at Notre Dame. Michael P. Ryan, I think you can get some contributions from him as a third down back. Frank Gore, we know what he could do. He should just be like the running back coach. Cannon's got speed. Kenneth Dixon, still around. Matt Waldman, favorite. But yeah, this is not a backfield to look for that running back that's going to break out when the starter goes down.
Okay, how about the breakout wide receivers? And they make a couple of moves. One, Louder with Crowder. Our man Jamison Crowder is still there getting it done. And, we'll see how it works this year. But they go out, they get Rashad Perriman. And if Perriman's healthy, he did fine things, even when he was the lone guy, right? Because there was a time in Tampa like, okay, Evans is down. Now it's Godwin and Perriman. And then Godwin and Evans are down. And it's just Perriman. And Perriman did some fine things. So very interested there. A guy that I love his game. I love his deep speed. Most impressive wide receiver at the Senior Bowl was Denzel Mims. So you've got speed, you've got concentration, you've got body control, you've got sideline awareness, and you've got the Jets. So my dynasty stock in Denzel Mims will have to wait, but I'm just waiting, Bloom. It's like crypto. It's going to explode. I know that Denzel Mims stock is going to explode, be like cryptocurrency.
Yeah, and it's tough because I loved Mims' game, or at least I loved his size, speed, aggression combination. Reminded me a little bit of Brandon Marshall, actually, after the catch, at the catch point, even in the route. Loved seeing college wide receivers who aren't afraid to hand fight, use their hands, arms, push off, NFL push-offs in the route, at the stem of the route when the ball's in the air. Mims did all those things, maybe not a polished route runner. Remember, he said Baylor wide receiver, but that can come in time. And I'm going against my avoid Adam Gase because how long is Gase going to be there? This is like the hopes we have for Sam Darnold that later on in his rookie contract, he's in a better functioning organization. You've got Rashad Perriman, and he can do what Robbie Anderson did, but Robbie Anderson did that last year and was unbelievably inconsistent. So, and we're talking about pure talent. Anderson's probably better than Perriman at this point, even though Perriman was the first rounder and Anderson was undrafted. Either way, Perryman's in the Anderson role. Big games will be there. I think where you can get him in best ball, like 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th round. Yes, Perryman's tailor-made for best ball. And Crowder should be a good best ball receiver. Also very cheap. Maybe have some redraft consistency because he's the incumbent. He's the guy who has chemistry with Sam Darnold. The big games were there. There were some games that it wasn't there. But Crowder is the one player in this whole offense who might be used at least on the upper half of his range of outcomes because of that slot receiver skill set.
The rest of the receivers include, hey, there's Josh Johnson. There's Braxton Berrios, right? Breaking some ankles there. And then Vincent, I hate vowels, Smith.
Yeah.
What is that, Limestone?
Right.
Limestone Cowboy. Okay, anyway. Let's
Glenn
just
Campbell.
sing. I just want to sing. This
Wichita Lineman. We're in a country mood tonight.
Right. Well, we always talk about like energy, right? Because we're
Yeah.
probably going to do another show after this. Stay tuned. But I'm like, we're feeling good. I mean, we're looking good, man. We got the headbands. We're talking Cam Newton, girl. And then all of a sudden we get to the Jets. I'm like, can we please
Sing.
be done with this?
It's karaoke time. See, we live in a neighborhood in New Orleans. I love it. It's Bayou St. John. You know what I'm singing when we moved here, right? Son of a gun, we'll have big fun. on the bayou. I don't know if you have big fun as a Patriots. I think of Patriots because of Braxton Berrios. But Berrios, a backup slot receiver, maybe with some ability there. Vincent Smith, a size speed guy they nabbed from the Texans. Now with the Josh Doctson trying to rejuvenate his career, Josh Malone trying to rejuvenate his career, didn't work out with the Bengals. Lawrence Cager is a big receiver, got an extra year there down at Georgia. But if we're not that interested in the first line players, sadly, this is why we're singing instead of analyzing, talking about the Jets.
Yeah, we're excited about Chris Herndon. Everybody should be excited about Chris Herndon if he's healthy. But again, Adam Gase Maw hanging over this team. There's other tight ends I would take a chance on, but Herndon is one of those I wish I could.
Yeah, Herndon, it was the injuries, if it was the suspension. We keep hearing in the offseason that the Jets have big plans for him, but they also signed Ryan Griffin to an extension during the year last year. I wouldn't be surprised if Herndon does some things that remind us of why we were so excited about him after his rookie year, but does he do them consistently? Is he my choice? I think there's going to be somebody higher than me on him in my draft, and I'm just going to wait, let them take him, and look elsewhere for my number 2 tight end.
Anybody else you want to talk about here?
Yeah, I mean, Griffin, again, he was competent. He had some decent days. Trevon Wesco, Matt Waldman favorite, more of a fullback, H-back, but certainly a guy that might have some untapped potential. Ross Travis, former basketball guy, kicked around the Colts and I think the Chiefs organizations. But again, it's the Jets. Jets fans, Chase Stewart, et cetera, everyone out there. We feel for you. Another year and another one drifting at sea, waiting for anyone. See, so even the Jets Steelers moments, like Doug Bryan missing field goals, I mean, the Jets and all the misery, even as it uplifts our hearts, at this moment, I'm sad.
At this moment, I just want to get to the NFC South, which we will do as the preseason watch list continues. Now we'll take a little bit of a break, Bloom, and then we will be back in moments. So
we'll be back.
Watching right now on YouTube, we're going to double up for you today and give you 2 preseason watch list episodes. And they'll be more fun than talking about the Jets. He's Sigmund. I'm Cecil. We are the Audible. Everyone out there, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned. And as always, stay frosty.